Hello everyone and welcome to round number 2 of the 2024 Memorial Championship presented by Discraft. A second go at the Fountain Hills Disc Golf Course. We've got a great lead card for you. Gossage shoots the hot round at 11 under. Castro right behind him at 10 under. Courtis also shoots a 10, and rounding out our card, reigning champion Gannon Buhr shot a 9 under. And guys, you begged for it, you pleaded, you made all the comments, you made them blush. Gossage is back for another go on the mic. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Terry. Love to be back here, and yeah, I love the response I received from the last round, so hopefully we can do it again. I'm
looking forward to it. Here we are on hole number 1. Does this get any easier, maybe? Even after playing a few tournaments and being out here a little bit, does hole 1 ever get any easier?
Yeah, it's still the scariest shot to start off the tournament, especially leading the tournament right here. A little bit of noise in the background. Very scary tee shot. And yeah, just trying to put it safe, land it somewhere near the basket, give myself a putt. But got some wicked ground play there. Came in a little hot. I was throwing driver there, so when it landed, instead of check-in, took a big old skip and OB maybe about 40 feet.
You get to take it from that spot, and you're not going to lose the disc. And then unfortunately, same can't be said for Jordan Castro. He doesn't cross land. I think the spotter's right on top of it, but he's got to go to the drop zone, missing a disc and with penalty.
Yeah, it's definitely something you have to think about. I put an extra Nuke OS in my bag just for hole 1 because I couldn't afford to lose my other one. So something you have to consider. It's unlike golf in that instance because when you lose your disc, you're losing a whole club from your bag. So you got to be prepared for that.
Courtis has a new bag this year and new sponsorship, one of the off-season moves that was made. And Gannon also in the big off-season move.
Yeah, those are two very solid shots there. Played them nice and safe, never a doubt, and just skipped right into the circle for him. We did have some right to left wind here, a little bit of headwind. So all these shots were stalling back a little bit, gliding a little bit more than we were thinking. You could see mine picked up a little bit of speed too at the end there. So definitely a little bit tricky here on hole 1.
As you say, almost 40 feet with the OB less than 8 feet behind the pin.
Yeah, not a very committed putt from me there. Yesterday I was feeling a little bit more confident. Today had a touch of headwind in my face and just wasn't quite feeling it. So I'm just happy that it sat there and I'll have a tap-in bogey.
And most importantly, maybe you still have all the discs in your bag.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a solid way to start the round right there. That's what you're looking for.
Jacob, a.k.a. Cupcake, here on the card.
Man, I'm getting flashbacks to the round all of a sudden. Very smooth release, though. One thing I will say about Cuppy is he takes a while to putt sometimes. But he's a very solid putter, and so I would bet on him making them when he does actually get them, to come out of his hand.
Is that any more or less frustrating if somebody takes a long time and then misses? Do you ever feel like, man, all that for a miss? And maybe even yourself. Do you ever think, man, if I would just go a little bit quicker?
So honestly, with Cupcake, I played a bunch of rounds with him, and one of the nice things is how good he is at putting because at the end of the day, he one putts every hole. So,
sure.
It only happens once, and it's actually, sometimes if someone like myself is 3-putting every hole, I might be taking more time than he is.
That's one perspective, I guess. I think that's pretty generous in that way of arriving at it. But we're at hole number 2, a par 4, one of only 2 par 4s. You're breaking this off in 2 separate chunks, aren't you?
Yeah. I think that the forehand's a very solid play. We're all forehand players here too, so I'd be surprised if anyone doesn't go for that shot. Cupcake likes to throw very hard with very overstable discs, so similar style to what I'll be doing as well. And then even Gannon, who's one of the best backhand throwers on tour, just because there is no gap, there's a pushing wind there. Forehand's a nice easy play.
Oftentimes the wind is maybe even blowing from left to right to kind of aid out here. Maybe it looks like it's coming over your left shoulder somewhat.
Yeah, it was a little breezy to start for sure. And on that one I was a little scared just because my last disc got so fast at the end. And I left that one a little wide. But yeah, Jordan does opt for the backhand play. And they're all pretty similar spots there. Again, we've all bitten off maybe 60% of the hole. So pretty reasonable approach shots up to this basket. Gannon being a little dramatic there. He goes, you threw that right in the middle of the lake, and then goes perfectly around the tree, lands nice and soft, rolls into the basket.
Gannon Buhr problems, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Jordan doesn't like his, though.
Yeah.
Is that two going to be parked? No, not the case.
Definitely stays wide, but that is the mistake you're allowed to make. On a lot of these holes, you have to remember, like, hey, if I'm going to err on one side, this needs to be the side I'm erring on. And I decided to go backhand today. I was a little, I don't know, a little shaky on the forehand approach last time, so I decided to just leave it over, inbounds the whole way, throw a mid-range, nice wide around the tree, and just get myself a putt.
So fast with that arm speed.
Yeah, it's always crazy to watch Cupcake play. Just the way he like pivots with his foot and it just generates so much speed right there at the last second. It's always really fun to see.
Castro, understandably, a little bit tentative. And I got to this point, we were on the second hole, and I decided to speed things up a little bit. This is at 500% speed, and it came in somewhere around 52 seconds or 48 seconds, whatever it is. He makes the putt, just like you said. But it definitely exceeds the 30-second limit. And I'm not here to harp on it, and I'll tell you guys that for the most part, I edited them all down throughout this entire round. It is always a topic of conversation, though, and I think it scares away some viewers, and I think it maybe even frustrates some fans out there.
Yeah, honestly, the person you should be harping on is probably me at the end of the day. Cupcake is allowed to do that until someone tells him otherwise. So it's actually on the players on the card. It's job to like deal with it. And since they changed the rules on the actual Pro Tour, they didn't change the rules, I guess. They added a new rule of a card can be put on the clock by a marshal, and then it's the marshal's job to actually stroke players to make them speed up pace of play if they fall behind the group in front of them. Since they added that rule, it's taken a little bit of pressure off the players to actually call these violations. We are at an A tier, so it's much different since that is just a tour rule. But at the end of the day, I think that it's taken a little bit of the pressure off of everyone, especially if we can keep a reasonable distance between the card in front of us.
Well, and I think back to filming you guys in last October in Las Vegas, and at a certain point, it was in the middle of the third round, Cupcake had exceeded his time yet again, and that's when you did give him the warning. And I very much respect that. I think a lot of people do. Like you said, it's obviously a difficult situation to deal with. I don't love harping on it. However, right. I do also love the idea of everyone staying within the rules as close as possible.
Yeah, today I was a little bit focused on my game, and I just didn't want to deal with it. So it's a little bit bad on my part, and probably in the future it'd be good for me to address these issues. It's the kind of thing I definitely like following the rules. So being someone that upholds that would be definitely something worth my time. But yeah, today I was just like, hey, stay in the zone and just don't let anything take you out of that.
Yeah, and being a self-officiated sport, and this will be my last point, to be a self-officiated sport just provides a lot of additional awkwardness. Like you said, if somebody else is out there calling it, I can understand that method versus you guys kind of, messing with your own flow, whether it's for your game or for a competitor's game.
Yeah, exactly.
So just for everyone's sake, though, yes, I have trimmed the majority of the shots from here on out. I think there's maybe one other long one in here, but his magic time frame is 48 seconds. That's like his sweet spot.
That's right where it is.
That's
almost
right
every
where
time.
it is right now.
Okay.
More putts than not, 48 seconds.
Good to know. We are here on hole 3.
Yeah, back to the action. I'm sorry.
Cupcake and Gannon leaving themselves a little short with the headwind on the elevated basket. Makes for some tricky putts. Gannon also leaves his just a touch low. And not really happy about that.
I mean, Gannon's got the height advantage on any of these elevated baskets. He's already a foot or a foot and a half taller than a bunch of the other competitors.
One thing to think about is players like Gannon and myself, I try to do this quite a bit. I like to putt nose down. So when you're putting at an elevated basket into a headwind, it makes it a little tricky with the nose down. Because if you get like too nose down, the headwind will actually push the disc down, substantially.
Yeah, not give it a chance at all, right?
Exactly. But since it's an elevated basket, you're kind of increasing your nose angle to the point where it may be flat, and then you might be nose up. So it's a very fine line between getting that nose angle right where you want it, and can lead to a lot of low putts on those elevated baskets.
Well, and someone like yourself that putts with a considerable amount of speed too, if you're putting it up in the air and it doesn't connect, you got a chance to have a long comeback putt as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I guess, the overall intention of the elevated baskets. Big thanks to our friends at Distinguished Doodle. 35% off if you use the code TheDiscGolfGuy at checkout. And hole 4 is one of these must-get birdies, isn't it?
Definitely. So we started off a little bit funky for our card. Jordan and I have had some woes on the first 2 holes, and then, both Cupcake and Gannon missed that last one. All of these are not like difficult holes by any means. So at this point, we're at one of the easiest holes in the course, and we're all just trying to get it going here. Love to put them nice and close, and yep, I can finally commit to a shot. We got a little bit of headwind, so I'm just ripping that Zone OS. Gannon called it a cheater disc all day, just because I get to throw it my regular old speed, and it just doesn't go anywhere. A solid shot from Jordan there. I was actually surprised by that one. It came out like very high and nose up, and then swung perfectly, landed right by the basket. It's just a kind of a peculiar line that I wasn't expecting, like when he was lining it up.
And we see plenty of spike angle coming in on that one, and pretty much checking up immediately for Cupcake.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is how much slower Gannon throws than the rest of us. We're all throwing a little bit more stable discs, overstable discs, nice and high, letting them spike in, and then Gannon's going a little touchier. He's throwing flat, nice and smooth, and a lot less arm speed. So just a little bit difference in play style.
Pretty easy birdie. Yesterday we saw that holes 12 and 13 and 16. Those were the 3 easiest holes in that order. Today 4, 13, and 16 play it as the 3 easiest. 12 somehow actually took a considerable dip and didn't play quite as easy as it did in the previous round. Interesting to note.
Yeah, it is interesting. I can believe it actually, though. The wind seemed a little bit easier on this hole today, and once we got to 12, 13, that kind of range, they were a little trickier. So maybe it's just the timing I had during my round, because maybe the wind picks up and calms down at different times for everyone, but that's just what I noticed.
Did you also think anything about, you went out around 11:30 during round 1. Our other feature card went out around 3 o'clock. It felt like they had a lot more wind. Kind of interesting to note. I mean, that's just the way sometimes the cards get shuffled, so to speak, but it was interesting to see that they dealt with a little bit more wind in the afternoon.
It definitely happens. I'm not surprised one bit. I shot a pretty solid round, and it felt like ideal conditions the whole day, that first round. So the fact that nobody caught me and they didn't have great conditions kind of makes sense to me at the end of the day.
That math checks out to some degree.
Exactly.
Here you are on 5, 441 downhill.
It looked good to me. I'm just like, I'm like, something funky could happen down there, but we'll just hope for the best. It disappears behind that hill, and almost anything can happen, but the grass is very tall, so Jordan doesn't like this one out of his hand.
Feels like he should. I mean, you hit the guardian tree that at least gives you a circle's edge putter or better.
Yeah, I think that the wind was pushing, so when he threw it, he thought he was a little wide, and got a little more push than he thought, but it does connect with the tree. So maybe he was just, wanted to get around the tree and not have like an obstructed putt, but I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit like what Gannon did on hole 2.
Yeah, everyone's expectations are just so vastly different, right? When you
Yeah.
throw a shot and you're like, that looks fine, and they're thinking, well, no, it was a poor release or it's not the line I meant,
Yep.
and it still works out. But yeah, now he does still have at least a circle's edge putt.
It's super solid.
Nice connection.
Nose up
Castro.
spinner, yep. Just catching the chain, landing softly in the basket. Very solid putt.
Trying to fight back after that rough double bogey to get things started.
Yeah, one of the things I like to think about, especially on this course, you play back-to-back rounds, so you end up comparing your rounds a lot. So for instance, I went single bogey, and then I went birdie-birdie. So basically after 3 holes, I was the exact same as my first round. So it's one of those things where I'm like, at this point, I'm like, hey, now all I have to do is improve on the holes that I didn't play nearly as well yesterday, and I can play a better round than before. So I don't know. I think everyone has a different way of viewing these like back-to-back rounds, how to improve, and sometimes you're not playing as well, so it's like, where are my losing strokes that I got the day before?
Yeah, frustrating to think, because if you have a good round, you've set a bar that you're trying to achieve again, and I could see that being a little bit frustrating. Well, it was so easy yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
Hole 6 plays up to this hillside. We always talk about the rollaways to the right. The grass is a little bit thicker and greener and a little bit longer, but you still don't really want to flirt with that right side hill.
Yeah, I was talking to the guys on my card, and I was like, it seems like it plays a little easier than it used to. And everyone was like, oh, it's probably just because the grass is taller. And like you said, the tree used to be there. So there were a couple things there where it was like, it made the shot trickier and a lot more potential to roll away. So today I decided to go a little bit more stable and just try to put it right on the pin and just trust that it's going to sit right where it lands. Jordan makes that mistake of hyzering out just a little bit like I did yesterday, and it's going to have that 40-footer, kind of a death putt too. You're putting right at the downhill there.
So interesting. I think back to 4 where we saw the drive come out of Cupcake, and it almost looks vertical. Like it looks like it's coming out of his hand just up and down, and same thing on this hole. And I know that's just a spike hyzer, but it seems almost extreme.
Yeah, him and AB are really good at throwing those shots. They can throw the disc almost vertical, and it makes the spike hyzer a lot easier. You can see here I got a little bit quick. I think I landed right by the basket, rolled out to about 40 feet. So makes for a little bit of tricky putt there. And then Cupcake landed just a touch right and rolled down the hill. So all these things I've been saying about the rollaway not happening are just not exactly true.
Well, the worst mistake there is to hit low and then have it roll back down at you. So
Yeah, for sure.
missing high, maybe not the worst thing there. And Jordan also not a great looking angle. Oh no, how does it come out?
Nice soft putt, though. That's really the way to attack holes from that angle. And that one feels good. About 25 feet, comebacker. Definitely those feel really good to hit, get the confidence going. And then at the end of the day, the difference Gannon had on this hole versus the rest of us, he threw a nice soft shot. He didn't throw nearly as high, didn't throw nearly as hard. And just when the disc landed, it settled. And that's the way to let the grass really grab your disc.
Do the work, yeah, for you.
Looking back on it, I think I would try to throw a shot more similar to that. I'd probably throw my zone OS on like a flatter line. So it's like losing speed when it's coming in, let the grass grab it. So I don't know, a lot of these tournaments, it's like even after practice days, even after a couple rounds, you're still figuring out the course a little bit.
Yeah, and our friends, great segue, unintentional. Our friends over at Six Sided Disc are doing podcasts. You can find them on YouTube. You can also download on any of the podcast apps. They've got a bunch of different series. One of them is called First Impressions, where they collect as many discs as they can from newer, smaller manufacturers or just other discs they haven't explored, and then they try and figure out more details about it. Again, make sure you check out Six Sided Disc on YouTube. Tentative green flag, but as we heard, it'll work.
Yep, Gannon's throwing that similar shot to what Alden was throwing. A little bit of Anheuser, getting it to do this little baby flex and come back. And it's hard to see from the picture there, but both those ended up maybe around 25 feet right. Pretty safe shots, kind of what you're looking for with the backhand, just to keep from going OB, give yourself a look.
And I talked about this yesterday. I genuinely had no idea that we'd see Yuli throw it. I know I had in the past. He threw it, wasn't all too successful. Now we just see Jordan go with it.
Yeah, Jordan's was perfect. He landed it like 2 feet left of the pin, and it just sat right there. Cupcake almost gave that one an ace run, which is
not what you want to be doing.
Not what you want to be doing on these peninsula holes. Fortunately, it is OB, yeah, about 20 feet from the basket, so not bad. This was kind of funny. I let the card tee off in front of us, and then after they teed off, the wind started picking up. And Gannon was like, God, Goss, why are you waiting for them to tee off? And then picked up even a little bit more for him, and I was like, hey, I was just, doing that just for you, man, just so you could deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the courteous, smart thing to do, and it doesn't pay off for Buhr, or does it? We'll see if he can capitalize, but like you said, a little wind gust, and he jams it home.
Does make the putt. I don't know. It's an A tier, so I like to have a little bit of friendly trash talk going on, Gannon's also really good about it. He's a good guy to play with. He'll always, talk to you or,
Things are pretty loose.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, you guys are obviously playing for some very legitimate money and out here in the early season trying to get some reps in and whatnot. But things are relatively loose, and we hear the wind picking up even more.
Yeah, this is what's unfortunate about taking your time on these putts. Cupcake took his full routine, got to about 30, 35 seconds, then the wind started picking up quite a bit more. And it's one of those moments where a lot of us would step off our lie because we haven't been taking too much time. But he got up to about maybe 50-some there, and he just had to pull the trigger. And the wind was just getting worse. It was hard to read, and ends up with a missed putt. So,
yeah, it would have been a relatively easy par save otherwise for him, but now he's going to pick up the bogey on one of the easier holes on the course. I believe that's the shortest hole you guys will play all weekend of either of the two courses, actually. And Course Design can get you can get a little assistance from our friends over at Dietrich Design, and the links in the description as we head to the last remaining par 4 on this course.
Yeah, I was talking with some of the guys, and we were thinking that it might be fun to play a combined hole here. Play like a Mando, so you have to go out to this peninsula first and then play across to the second peninsula.
I feel like in some world at some point we saw something like that. I don't know if that was a memorial of a decade ago or something, but I
could have
do
been the
feel like
All-Stars or something like that too.
I feel like we've seen that get played at one time or another. But yeah, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, my issue is just it's such an interesting place to play with these peninsulas and landing zones and stuff. But unfortunately, this shot has just become too routine. And then it's, basically just a jump putt from where those drives are landing. So it kind of takes a lot of the I don't know, decision-making and difficulty out of the hole.
One thing I do love, and that's what I want to hear from you guys in the comments, is what do you think of the circular tee pads? As we talk about maybe safari holes or just the fact that a pin placement can get moved anywhere, assuming they're groomed well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the circular tee pads. Do you have any kind of preference to them?
Yeah, so I've got a quick note for you. This isn't quite to do with the circular tee pads, but the tee pads out of Fountain can be very slick. And I noticed, and maybe this is just in my head, but every time I went up on the tee pads, if I found a nice dry spot on it and just scraped off my shoes nicely, it would get all of the, grass residue, some of the water, moisture off. Then I would have perfect traction on the tee pads. So it might just be in my head, but it was one of those things where, in the past, I've slipped on these tee pads quite a bit because they are kind of slick. But after I started doing this routine on every tee pad, I didn't have any problems with slipping.
Oh, wow. Well, they didn't sign up for all the pro tips as well, but we appreciate that insight. I think one of the big challenges, and we see this on the baskets and on the tees, is just when the fountain goes off, it sprays less than clean water, we'll say, all over the course, and then I think that kind of gets on the tees, and then ultimately it erodes the baskets quicker. Those are some of the problems. In fact, we saw a few of the houses get re-sided a number of years ago because just what comes off out of this reclaimed wastewater pond is not pleasant.
Yeah,
so
it's not
keep your
great.
eyes and ears closed. Eyes, ears, mouth, all of that closed if the fountain's going off and anything's misting toward you. It looks pretty, but you don't want to ingest any of it, I promise you.
You'll notice a little bit in the actual sound of the baskets too.
Yeah.
They catch really well, but they're not very satisfying, like with the noise that they make.
Not like a high-pitched, tangy, tingy kind of sound.
And that just comes from that residue, like you're saying.
And kind of dulled down.
Gannon left his jump putt a little bit short. He was talking to me how he was a little iffy on that shot, and but he does connect on the circle 1 putt there, so it doesn't actually matter at the end.
Not mad. The fact that he's sitting 7 under through 8, and has a pretty good round going for himself, kind of quietly. Cupcake sitting at 4 under through the first 8, and Jordan at 2, and you yourself, you're sitting at 5 under. So,
and going back to what I was saying earlier, aside from that difference on the first 3 holes, I played almost the exact same round as before. So we've got to this point. I was 5 down last round. I'm 5 down this round. So I'm thinking to myself, hopefully I could just put it out there in the same spot and then just make the putt this time. But
yes, you put yourself on nine's dance floor, so to speak. And this is definitely the bonus birdie, I feel like, of the entire round. We only saw, what did I say, 2 birdies yesterday.
Yep.
Cupcake being one of them, in fact.
And Jordan was the
and
other
Jordan
one.
was the other. So, yeah, out of 103 players yesterday, only 2 were able to get the birdie.
So I think we'll see the rest of us probably going for this.
Is it a spot? Is it a distance? Like, what's really going through your head when you're trying to release that drive?
Like I said before, my goal is to just get it over that bush, throw it as hard as I can with a really stable disc, and then just try to throw it left and short in the water. Because if I try to do that, it ends up in a really good spot. And I don't know why, but that's just the thought process I've come to.
All right, so everyone just needs a Gossage arm, and then you can go out and try it for yourself. Easier said than done by this man, who's Castro.
Definitely. Cupcake made the mistake that's really easy to do on this hole, which is just a touch long. You could probably see it skip just past the basket, which is a really good miss to make, actually, because you get the 20-foot putt for par.
Yeah, be aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, just try and make it from there.
And then a lot of people lay up even farther right, which I'm not a big fan of, because if you're not jump putting as a layup on this hole, it becomes very difficult. And it brings in different numbers. Versus I feel like if I go for it, I'm pretty much guaranteed a 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very solid make there. He had the miss just a couple holes earlier, similar position, so much cleaner release there. Didn't take quite as much time, and paid off for him.
I mean, he's walking away from hole 9, 1 under for the 2 days that he played it. Not too bad.
Yep.
You had, almost within a few feet of this yesterday?
It's almost like, when I looked at it, I was like, this might be the exact same spot, like within inches.
And today you convert. Bonus birdie.
Much cleaner putt, and yeah, I managed to get 1 stroke better than yesterday on the front 9, which I'm super stoked with.
Heck yeah. Well, we're going to close out the front 9 again. Let me know what you think of the tee pads and circular tee pads. If you can name a downside, I'd love to hear what it is. But like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. We just might hit 100,000 by the end of the weekend. Right now, Goose is out in front. Gannon. Anthony Barella is shooting hot. He's 8 under through the front 9, as is Isaac. Everyone, that's the front 9. We'll see you in the back for the conclusion of round number 2.